Well, testing, if you can hear me.
Yeah, they hear us.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Awesome. So, and I can make us louder if you guys need us to be louder. 201, they won't even notice. So today, we're going to go over build quality of thin and light gaming notebooks as compared to the currently unreleased Alienware m15. Let me close my work notebook. That's Alienware build quality. That thing's not going to break. My corporate system is top notch. Alienware 13 has not broken at all, despite all the times I've thrown it in frustration.
I'm not going to test mine. I'll let you be the rigorous tester.
Yeah, no, it's fine on my end.
Okay.
I've thrown this thing everywhere and punched it. So we're gonna go over the Alienware m15 build quality versus other thin and light gaming notebooks, and kind of show you what we put into these notebooks when we're designing it, why we do it, and a comparison of what happens when you don't think of those things.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we get the question for Alienware, in addition to why is it so expensive, is how can you actually prove the build quality? And the build quality obviously is a big part of the expense, and I'm going to use the time today to kind of go through it and explain a lot of behind the scenes what we're doing in terms of that build quality, the rigorous testing that we have, and why we made the decisions that we do, and in a lot of cases why it impacts cost as well.
Yeah, and I kind of went over the actual impact testing of the Alienware systems,
I remember that, yeah.
and I beat it up pretty hard.
Yeah, you did a good
gotta
job.
imagine looking at that video, you have to look at kind of like the comparison. If you can imagine some of the other materials that are being used out there in the market, what would happen to that system if it were to be impacted?
Just to kind of give you, my name is Cameron Duncan. I cover the product planning portion for Alienware notebooks. So a lot of the things that we're doing in terms of the overall design, much of it starts with me. So everything that you dislike about the product is my fault. Anything that you like about the product, I can't take credit for. So with that in mind, I at least have some expertise in terms of, on the marketing side anyway, of being able to explain some of the decisions that we made and why we made them. When we get down into details, we'll have a question and answer session, I guess, at some point.
Yeah, I just promoted it on Twitter. We don't have many viewers right now, but this will be great as a video.
Right. Well, there are a lot of engineering types who can dig into the nitty gritty of the actual materials and so forth, and we can take follow-up questions on that and get the right answers for those if they come up. But to get that in mind, starting with kind of where we are, this is the M15 in terms of a pre-treated part. So this is one of the first times that we actually see the product in a form that allows us to understand how rigor is it, how is it adhering to our design philosophy, and what are some tweaks that we need to make.
This isn't the final look of it.
No. In fact,
material-wise, like we're not shipping that out.
No, exactly. So this is give you a better idea of what we actually are shipping, and this is something that's kind of the second phase, but it gives you an idea of kind of how they come together. This is the same part, but with the treated actual colors, the paint, and everything else that goes into it. Some of the tweaks that we make as a result of moving from this phase to this phase, you can kind of see a lot of that progress that we make in terms of the design. So first of all, in terms of the materials that we use, a lot of times when you're talking about thin and light gaming systems, a lot of them will talk about materials. And for a lot of the systems, all metal is one of the things that you typically might see in terms of specification. And really what it comes down to is all metal is great. That's really where it starts out. When you look at plastics and ABS plastics in specific, really that's kind of the baseline today in terms of what a relatively inexpensive notebook might be. I wouldn't want to say cheap, but relatively inexpensive. There are some advantages to plastic, but they don't really play well in terms of the gaming space specifically. So really the step up from plastic is aluminum. What we use for Alienware is we actually use an alloy of magnesium. It's a mag alloy that's tied into aluminum or mag aluminum. And there's
so many.
There's different alloys of mag you can use.
Just the way that it comes off, it sounds very Oompa Loompa-ish. It's very whimsical.
Whimsical, okay.
Yeah.
Oompa Loompa. Well, anyway, with that in mind, mag aluminum has some benefits to it. One of which is that it has a higher strength weight ratio. So if you want to have greater strength in terms of your products, this is better versus aluminum, just in terms of being able to have a lighter system, but have the same level, if not better, overall strength and durability.
Yeah.
The other is that it's less thermally reactive. So if you want to keep your skin temperatures as low as possible, this is the better approach in terms of doing so. When you're using aluminum, you're going to have more heat spots. You're not going to be able to achieve the same level of performance that you want to without scalding your fingers.
And what are the disadvantages to plastic? To that, if you know.
Plastic can do a lot of the same thing. The only disadvantage, and well, there's several disadvantages, but one of them is around thickness. So if you're trying to achieve something that is relatively thin and low weight, plastic's not the way to go. Plastic has its uses in some notebooks, especially large ones, just based on some of the structure you can get away with. But when you're trying to go thin and light, there's very few advantages because you'll have to compromise performance if you want to use plastic. The disadvantage, however, of using magnesium is that it's significantly more expensive than aluminum because it uses an alloy, because there's different processes in place in terms of how you manufacture this material specifically. There's a cost associated with it, and I'm sure that there's probably something on the internet where you could Google in terms of mag alloy or magnesium aluminum versus aluminum specifically. But there is a disadvantage in terms of gaining those advantages. The other thing that you have with it is that it allows for different formations. It allows you to have more intricacies of design in terms of what you're going to approach. And you can see some of this in terms of, I don't know what the best view you can have on this, but this is the back of the thermal module for the M15. And some of the venting on the sides, on the back, underneath, the way that we have it structured allows for a very 3D type of approach in terms of the thermal design that we actually have for it. When you look at things like aluminum, they typically use a sheet metal type of approach. For example, this is our competitor. We have conveniently blocked out any type of identifying marks, hopefully.
Did I do it good? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think we're good.
you won't be able to see which one this is, although
What
if you
brand
do your
of toilet
research,
paper is this?
yes.
Yeah.
But this is simply a piece of sheet metal. Now this is kind of a mag alloy type of look, but it's a sheet metal approach towards it.
They're kind of like horizontal, so that way they can see
Right.
right? Like you can hear the flipping little bent parts in here.
Yeah. So I guess it's a comparison of that. You can kind of see this is
Flip them together. We'll do like a fan.
for sure. I can-
Look, I stop. You hear that?
Right.
You stop. You see that?
Right. So it gives you some idea, and I guess that's a good demonstration in terms of just how rigor and how much strength is actually built into the same part. And they essentially they accomplish the same thing, but the amount of additional strength that we have in this material versus this one is substantial. The other thing this provides, and I was touching base on it, is the ability to design a thermal system and a thermal profile that allows us to achieve higher levels of performance because we have this ability to create this kind of 3D type of overall design versus just using pieces of sheet metal that are bonded together. And you can see that in terms of how the fans and how the curves come together on the M15. It gives you an idea. We're able to eke out just a few more watts of performance in terms of an equipable system, so that at least on a per config basis versus the competition, we have some advantages.
Yeah. So, and that's basically what adds to some of the costs.
Right.
Because people bring it up a lot, and I always tell them, like, you can go get some flimsy plastic thing out there. I mean,
And there's some uses for that. I mean, there's people who are fine with having that, and there's folks that really want to have that additional layer of either durability, or they want to be able to have something that's a lower weight. There's nothing necessarily wrong with going with a different type of material in some cases. It all depends on what you're looking for. But for us specifically, and one of the things that I think that we've talked about before is we were a little bit late in terms of coming up with a thin and light type product. One of the reasons is that we really wanted to make sure that we did it in a way that was not going to compromise gaming performance specifically. And we're confident, just based on the direction that we've gone with the material selection specifically, as well as some other nuances that we talked about before, that this is the better way to go just versus what we're seeing right now in the market.
Yeah. And what we have available on the M15 is, I mean, we can't really talk about the specs right now. I mean, high end, we have the 1070MQ.
Right.
That works in there. But we also have like the graphics amplifier on there. So even though you have this thing, I mean, not to knock the 1070MQ, it's incredibly powerful graphics card. I love the 1070.
It is.
Series
There's
in general.
one level above that, and you would, but yes, there's reading between the lines, there's opportunities there for us to offer things in the future if they become available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then with the graphics amplifier, we can put in RTX cards. You can use the 2080.
We talked about before, the fact
2080
that we
Ti.
have that external graphics support means that, if you've got your 2080 Ti right now, then you can actually,
I do behind the curtain.
one of the few. I think I saw one in the hallway a few days ago too.
It was the one I took.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But yeah, the M15. I mean, while it's thinner and lighter, like Cam said, we've been trying our best to stick with the brand tenets of like this premium build, something
Right.
that still matches the rest of our lines. I mean, there's very little difference in regards to look and design behind the M15 versus the 15 versus the 17
Yeah.
versus the Alienware 13.
One interesting thing to kind of note too, and we talked a little bit about the differences in metal quality. There's and using, I guess, imperial numbers for weight. If you have kind of a 5-pound boundary. If you have a system for the 15 class specifically, if you've got something that's less than 5 pounds, it pretty much means you have to use a mag alloy of some kind, at least somewhere in your system. You're going to have to want to be able to do that. If you want to stay above 5 pounds, but you still want to be thin, then fine. Aluminum, using aluminum, you're going to be able to get there. And there are systems that do that specifically, and they're able to hit price points that we can't hit just because they use a more standardized type of process because they don't use something as exotic as we do. And then, as I mentioned before, really when you start getting into plastics, you're not going to be able to get necessarily to less than 5 pounds or even within. There might be some cases that get within 5 pounds, but then your thickness starts to go up and your performance starts to go down.
Yeah.
So there's an interesting amount, and maybe at some point we can come up with kind of the Alienware view of materials. But it's interesting to see kind of emerging. There's new emerging mag alloys that are coming out. They're always assessing. There's carbon fiber that comes into play. I know a lot of folks are looking at carbon fiber. And just in process, as we approach new products and as we look at new designs, all of those types of materials are constantly being looked at.
Yeah. So we're going to open it up to questions if you guys have any questions. If not, we can just end this early. I mean, we answered a lot of questions.
Yeah, I
during
thought
the
that we
day,
covered
and
pretty well. I'm surely nobody has any questions just based on how in-depth I was.
Yeah, you were incredibly in depth.
Yeah.
And not just that, but we answered so many questions with the AMA that we also have a Reddit thread
Well, sure.
that went over everything that was on there, like every possible question that could have been asked
That's good.
was
You're
answered.
referring to old material. That's good. You can get some links back to your old stuff.
My old video, I mean, they're only 2 weeks old. You're making it seem like I'm jipping people.
Nothing's changed in 2 weeks. So.
Is there any noticeable flex with the M15?
Noticeable flex. I want to say that if you bend hard enough, you could flex anything. This is using as much as I can reasonably. I'm trying to bend it. If
It's
I
not
pull
really
on it, it's
warping
not
or
really
anything.
work, and it snaps back. Now, using generic competitor products, there's a lot of flex that are built into this, right? You can basically just twist and do it in terms of this. And the what we call the A cover or the hinge up for this product is just as flexy. So because you don't want to identify who this is, but at least on the display side, you can basically bend and pull a display around. That's not a design that we're comfortable with. I think that that was one of the approaches that we really took with this product, is that type of bendy, flexy thing in order to hit a certain weight target wasn't something that we were interested in doing. In terms of Alienware and the brand tenants that we have, it's all about making sure that if we're going to do something that's thin and light, it's not at the consequence of performance.
Yeah. Well, we don't have any more questions.
All right. Well, that was a good one, though.
Yeah, very quick, very fast.
Yeah.
That's the kind of content we're putting out here. I'm going to put it up on the YouTube channel. I'll have it live. Nice 14, 15-minute video.
Excellent.
Perfect.
Sounds good.
Now everyone can use it. Global teams, here you go. Easy video for you to use. All right, guys. Thank you for watching today's Tech Talk. You can like this video, this stream. You can also subscribe to the YouTube channel. And you should watch it, because I realize less than 1% of you are watching.
They're probably not watching at this point.
They're probably not watching at this point.
No.
It's always the non-subscribers that are watching.
This is where we should give actually the good information, like where to win one or something.
Well, I mean, I'm going to give one away at some point.
You should do it at the very end of a video.
At the very end of a video. Oh, at the end of a stream, and then make it unlisted. Not make it unlisted, make it private. So like you only had the instructions during that time.
And for those of you that are still listening, you have the advantage versus everybody else now.
Yeah.